Welcome into the Boardroom Podcast. I'm Ward 6 Alderman Ben Piper.
Ward 4 Alderman Chad Wicker.
How you doing, Chad?
I'm doing good, man. You gonna bring the guest in, brother?
I didn't know we were going to do like our normal friendly banter back and forth, or if we're just going to jump straight into it.
I apologize to people who we can't get a regular podcast in because this guy's just apparently too busy.
Things to do, people to see, money to make, all the things that you got to do when you're juggling a job and alderman duties. Sometimes that's what you got to do.
That's right.
But we do have a very special episode for y'all today. We've had kind of a dry spell on guests for a while, but we've got some special ones that are coming in. They're going to make a huge impact on the city of Hernando the next 4 years. They'll be working with us on the Board of Aldermen. We'll have Alderman-elect Lauren McLendon and Alderman-elect Kit Kitchens joining us. We have Lauren here with us in person, and Alderman-elect Kitchens will be joining us via phone because he actually is the busiest of the four of us, I think.
You think so?
I don't know, or maybe he just really likes driving. I don't know. It's something. But Lauren, welcome in.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you on. We'll get Kit connected here really quick, but tell us a little bit really quick about excitement. I'm sure when you got the news, a long hard campaign season, and what your reaction was when you saw the final totals that you were going to be serving as an alderman here in Hernando.
It was very surreal. That's probably the best word to encapsulate it. So from January through the runoff, my life was basically work, campaign, knock doors until the sun went down. Blessedly, we had daylight savings.
Bring you in
in the
just
middle
a
of it.
second. Okay, hold on.
But having daylight savings in the middle of it meant that we got extra hour of daylight to go do stuff.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest thing was, oh, wow, now I have some free time.
Well, and also for people that have never had to campaign or never volunteered on a campaign, what is it like to literally just knock on the door of a complete stranger and be like, hey, please vote for me? What was that experience like?
Awkward at first. The first house every night was always the toughest one. But once you know that you're in it and you want to win, then whatever it takes.
And did you have any kind of, I know he and I have shared some stories about knocking on doors and running into wild things possibly. Was there anything crazy that just like really stuck out? Like, somebody's having a Dungeons and Dragons tournament that's been lasting for 3 days.
Nothing that wild. I did get bit by a dog.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I had two people slam doors in my face, which was funny. And I don't know. Some of it is like, just do it for the plot, I guess.
Absolutely.
But it was a lot of turf to cover since y'all are one singular ward. Even that is a lot to cover. And trying to get the entire city was monumental.
It's a lot. It's a lot of ground to cover. For folks that are out there that don't know, there are thousands and thousands of homes that have registered voters in them, and it's hard to get to them all. But it's very tough, the Alderman-at-Large race, getting to everybody. All right, we have also Alderman-elect Kit Kitchens. I think he's joined us now. Chad has got all the wires stretched out as far as we can get them. Can you hear us,
yeah,
Mr. Kitchens? Fantastic.
Hi.
Well, kind of same question to you. We kind of open things up, just talk about your feelings on, election night and kind of getting that news that you were going to be serving the folks in Hernando.
Yeah, I mean, it was a interesting day. We stayed up there all day at Colonial Hills Church, watching as everyone walked in, had a few conversations with people as they were going in to vote, and far enough away from the polling location, just for complete clarity. No illegal campaigning, but
Got to have legalities.
But you got your tent out there and you got your chairs and people come up to you and talk, and then so it's a long day, and then as everything closed, you just kind of sit there and wait. So
yeah,
we were kind of all standing there waiting for them to post that ticket on the door. So it's different for me than it was for Lauren because of course, I guess when you're running at large, you've got all these different polling locations. We just had one, so when that ticket came up, I was just sitting there thinking, okay, I know that there's I think it was like 36 absentee votes out there. So I'm like, man, as long as this is the margin's more than 36 votes, I know I got it. And so they posted the ticket, and I saw it, and I was like, yes. Like, it was
That's right.
well over 36 votes in difference. So I knew I had it. My wife, April, was standing there right next to me, and so I just kind of walked away without, too much. My opponent was there. I didn't want to, be tacky about it. So I just kind of walked away, walked back to my tent, and, told everyone, and, got to spend a little bit of time with people that supported me, mostly family there. And, it's good time. You just kind of let the relief wash over you,
That's right.
All
Fantastic.
that work is paid off. Yeah.
Well, now that y'all have had some time to marinate a little bit, we wanted to have y'all on the Boardroom Podcast. Just to explain to folks, so they have not been sworn into office yet, so we can have the four of us just sort of on and just sort of
legal eagle right here.
Yeah, we're good to go. I think, did we talk to the city attorney about this, or did we just?
I did. I asked
Okay,
him.
all right. That was Chad's the one that does all the heavy lifting on the show. In case you've never realized, he is literally he's the one that makes everything happen. But so we're good to go from that standpoint. But we just wanted to have them on to introduce them, and I'm sure there's people that listen to the podcast that maybe didn't get a chance to meet them in person, and just another opportunity for them and a platform for them to talk about what they'd like to do over the next 4 years.
Do y'all want to take a minute and talk about maybe some priorities or something each one of you guys have?
Yeah.
Kind of share what you want to do. Lauren, you go first.
Swing away at that first. So living in Hernando for the last 5 years, the stuff that attracted me to it most was the small town life. It's very different from anywhere that I've lived. The charm of the square, of course, kind of captivates everyone, I think, that comes to visit, and the weekend tourism opportunities that we have here as well. So when my husband Sadler and I decided to build our house in Hernando in 2021 is when we bought the land. And Kit's in real estate, so he knows how crazy the market's been. But anyone that's been around the last 4 years and paid attention, between interest rates, materials of construction, people moving here and there across the country, it was difficult. So it took us a while to get our house built. It just finished up last summer. We've been at it about 11 months at this point. We prioritized living in Hernando, even though it's expensive to live here, because we had an opportunity to be very close to his parents, as well as all three of his living grandparents, and wonderful schools, the parks, and the programming that goes along with that. So those are all things that I want to protect. And when I think about safety and infrastructure goes hand in hand with that. So not just the roads themselves being safe, but also the police force, dispatchers, fire, EMS, and also what products and services we're offering in Hernando, what kind of businesses we're attracting. And there's limitations on what aldermen can do and can't do. We can't say, hey, you have to open a business here. But when it comes to zoning, that's like the big thing where we have some potential there. But also ordinances on things. What will we allow and not allow? The sign ordinance was one that I know several people had talked about in the campaign season, where it's an ordinance that's not enforced, but it's there and is kind of an oddball thing. The sound ordinance is another one. In the time before I even knew that I was going to run for alderman, it always bewildered me how long it took to pass, if you could even pass it at a federal level, any sort of common sense regulations. At the city or state level, though, some things had kind of breezed by pretty quick. The sound ordinance is one that I was kind of shocked about from 2020 to when it was implemented. That was very quick that it came together. So I saw the potential for an impact at the city level, and in this position, that's kind of what I'd want to do is common sense regulations and common sense growth and the infrastructure to support it, which, like I said, goes beyond just roads and stormwater management, but the emergency response is huge.
Yeah, I think we've had those conversations in the past on the podcast just about, sometimes ordinances just really need to be a little easier to understand, for folks. And I think when we were, discussing the noise ordinance and what a decibel is and all these other things, it was just kind of like, we're having to Google terms and trying to figure out, what exactly we're looking at. And, it is all a lot of research that goes into it. And I think the other thing that is great about how government works is that sometimes something can go into place and then, hey, this isn't working, so we need to amend it, or we need to, make changes to it. And that's one of those things that, hopefully we'll all be able to continue having discussions on. So it's great to have new, fresh ideas for sure from that standpoint. And, all right, Kit, what do you, I know you're chomping at the bit over there, ready to jump in on just, priorities for the next 4 years, or even for the just, right here in the short term.
Yeah. So, well, really quick on the ordinance thing. I think one thing to think about when we're talking about things like a sign ordinance or a noise ordinance, whatever it may be, is one, that we know we can enforce it. I think a lot of times I've listened to meetings where, like, well, we can't really even enforce this or that ordinance. Like, if we can't enforce it, it shouldn't exist, because then you're going to have there's no way to, if you can enforce it all the time, that you don't end up having a point where it's inconsistently enforced, And so if we need to pare that back or whatever it may be, that's just what, we ought to do. Otherwise, we're going to open ourselves up to being, the city's going to unequally enforce certain ordinances. So, that aside, I have a lot of things, obviously, that I want to get done over these next 4 years. First of all, I think one of the things that I talked about when I was campaigning was a design overlay for the square, or rather for the areas surrounding the square, that would essentially make it to where things that are whenever a structure is replaces another within a certain area, maybe from the square to the roundabout on 51, or the square to the railroad tracks, etc. The exact parameters aren't fully laid out yet, but whenever a building replaces another in those areas, that they have to be of the style and type of the square. So this would be something where it's not necessarily a historical district. It's just that they would have to have building materials or other design styles that kind of fit that style that you see on our square. So that's one thing that I'd like to get done here in the short term. Another thing is, there's the reactive, or the proactive side of I guess the reactive side of things, as far as, what we allow and what we don't. I think Lauren hinted at this, and, we both had a lot of overlap in what we ran on, which I think, maybe shows, I guess, what the people of Fernando really want, which is, to not allow certain developments. I know that one thing that I heard about again and again and again was, in my area of Ward 5, you had a lot of industrial style buildings that were approved in that area, that, were poor uses of certain parcels. And I think a lot of people just saw things like that happening, and they became kind of disillusioned with the decisions that were being made. So we, that's one thing that I'd like to look into, that with my background in real estate, it's easier for me to look into, maybe a land use and say, okay, that's really not the highest and best use for that property. And when we do allow things that aren't the highest and best use for a property to come in, whenever we can help it, what that does is it ultimately undercuts our tax base, because the alternative would be a property that generates more tax revenue and probably more property tax revenue and probably more sales tax revenue. So I want to be conscious about what we're doing there. Not allowing a ton of apartment units and things like that to come in. I think that we've we've gotten a lot of. I think what's been approved now is probably sufficient for the time being. We just had a lot of proposals for apartments and things like that in recent history. I think we kind of need to slow that down. I'd like to create a proximity rule for things like vape shops and CBD stores and liquor stores and things like that. It basically makes it to where you can't propose a new one within 5 miles of another. That of course would grandfather in existing businesses, but essentially to where, if you have right now you have vape shops popping up everywhere. You have CBD shops popping up everywhere. When I was on the campaign trail, it was almost comical how often people said, how many vape shops are we going to get? It was mentioned nonstop. So this is a good solve for that, basically to say that right now, the number of vape shops that exist already would if we put that ordinance in place, it would basically lock it in where it is now, because right now you can't really go anywhere that's not already within 5 miles of a vape shop or CBD store, something like that.
Piggybacking on that, Kit, I know you probably heard a similar thing regarding gas stations. How many gas stations does Hernando need?
Oh, yeah.
My answer is probably 12 less than we have.
Which I know you guys did something to try to curtail that, which was and y'all could probably explain it better than I can, but to not allow them within. What'd y'all do with that?
So what we did was we require conditional use for a gas station on any property that's C2, and so what they've done to get around that is, and a lot of the gas stations that you've seen built in the last 4 years have already been was prior approved, so that it wasn't a lot we could do. We didn't really vote on it. I think maybe one or two that we've actually voted on since we've been on the board. Most of them are already prior approved, but basically what they're doing now is zoning the property C4, which is like a commercial PUD where you can kind of pick your uses and not have to go through that conditional use process. And so that's the way they've gotten around it.
Right. So yeah, and that's I think where you get to kind of what I was saying about the reactive side of things. That sometimes, you just have to have. I guess sometimes the only way to shut something down that maybe the taxpayers and the voters don't want is to, just vote down a plan unit development, and so I think that, for me, things like that. Right now, I feel like I have a really good sense of what people in Ward 5 want, because I talked to so many people. When I was campaigning, I talked to over 500 people in my ward that vote consistently in that area, and so I got a really good feel for what they want and what they don't want. And what Lauren said about gas stations, that's 100% right. That people really are sick of seeing them pop up everywhere. People were sick of, like I said, seeing CBD stores and vape shops and liquor stores pop up everywhere. People are tired of Mexican restaurants, of course, but popping up everywhere. But you do get a sense of what people want, and so I think having had so much input over such a short amount of time has really, I guess it sends me into the office kind of emboldened to do what's in their interest, because I know what they want. When I talked about my plans, regarding the areas around the square, and when I talked about my plans, about the proximity rule for CBD stores and vape shops and all of that, people were extremely receptive, and so I think that does give me some sort of guiding principle as I get ready to take office.
I think one thing we've talked about in this podcast before is that we are blessed on this board to have to deal with good problems in a lot of ways. because we do
right.
have, we are fortunate in that businesses do want to locate here. People do want to develop here compared to, there's other cities where that's not the case, right? So we have to, we have to be good stewards of that. I think that's a big piece of what y'all are saying. And
Yeah.
it's a big part of it.
It's definitely a luxury. It's a luxury that not every, of course, most cities in Mississippi don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really think about you think about it though, and I think, are y'all getting a lot of feedback? I'm outside. I'm out on a
you're good.
I think you're.
So, this is one thing that I've come to realize over the course of this time I've been running is that people are tempted to think that a good situation is permanent, that things will always be this way. And I'm not saying that y'all necessarily think that or anything, but I think that that's a natural temptation, that if you have a good thing going, that's just the way it is. That DeSoto County just is a place that grows. And, there's if you look at history or just the time horizon of most of the communities in Mississippi that were the place to be before, that's just not how it goes. In fact, a lot of times it's when cities are in the place that we are now that they make their fatal mistake. And so I think that's one thing that really emboldened me to run in the first place was I think that we could do a lot right now that's going to set us up to be the place where, we want to continue to raise our kids. I mean, I think we, at least, me and Chad and Ben, we've all got young kids. We still have a lot of time
married, so don't pump the brakes there.
It's coming.
But you want this place to be in 10 years, this place in spite of its growth, and so, us realizing that our actions could determine if it stays this type of place. I guess it adds a lot of gravity to it, knowing that in the future we may not have the good problems.
Well, and Kit, you had mentioned, I think in conversation with me, or I'd heard it on a podcast or something about Franklin, Tennessee, and the parallels to here. And I visited my brother-in-law in Madison, Mississippi recently, and Hernando could be that level. Madison is a suburb of Jackson, just like Franklin's a suburb of Nashville. We're a suburb of Memphis, for good or for bad. And there's a lot of folks that travel into Memphis for work, like me, either to go to the airport and fly somewhere or work in an office there. And folks that drive down because of the school systems and other jobs that we have in DeSoto County that cross the state line the opposite way to come here. You're exactly right. You got to have an even touch on it so that we don't end up being a declining city that once was or could have been, looking for future generations. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a lot of priorities around,
city planning.
Development's a big piece of it, and just whether it's for aesthetics or whether it's for the property values or whatever it could be, whatever it may be, or just for the general wants of, constituents that are out there. Definitely some good priorities. One thing that's been a priority, I think, for this board very clearly over the last 4 years has been, investing in parks and recreation. And, we're in the middle of the Renaissance Park development out there. We've spent some more money on the Hernando Soccer Complex as well to kind of get it, a little more on par. Still a little bit more things to go there. But, Lauren, any thoughts about just parks, for example, of just, where that falls in terms of priorities, or is that something that's a little further down the line?
I'd say it's further down the line for me. I think you guys have already paved the way on the parks themselves, and so we get into the programming side of things, where we've got sports for kids to play, activities going on. Our population here, I'm below average. It's average age of 36. I'm 35. But we do have folks on both ends of the spectrum, little ones like what Kit and April are raising, as well as retired folks. And so having things that are attractive here, like I mentioned, like the weekend tourism, utilizing what we have for that. I mean, the A Fair is coming up this weekend.
Yes.
The opening of the farmers market's always huge. There's a lot that we have to showcase already, and as additional things are brought in, the adaptive play equipment at the parks here that
Yeah, that's something I don't think we've talked about, is Southern Pediatric donating. They had the gala, a couple, I think you were there, and they donated that money to purchase some equipment at
there's
the,
over $15,000
church
raised.
church
Yeah.
park there. I think they're going on. I think I saw an email about that where they donated that to us. We mentioned that at the last board meeting.
And we're also, I know we haven't mentioned that this is a new one, that they're resurfacing the tennis courts at Church Park, and they're going to get those lined up for, I guess, pickleball as well, which will be, I think pickleball is, it may be the most, it was the first time I ever heard of it, I was like, this will be like a thing that disappears in 6 months.
Are you a pickleball
And then
champion?
and then the next thing I knew, because there's a lot of like Pickle and Piper jokes that like write themselves, whatever. But that is, I thought it was gonna be a fad. Next thing I knew, we were like buying a portable net and buying, and playing it in the cove like with neighbors and stuff. And now we're, resurfacing tennis courts so that we can utilize them in new and different ways. And that's one thing I think that we have done a pretty good job of just getting something for everybody. There's stuff for kids, and there's stuff for adults, and there's stuff for seniors. But there's always other opportunities out there, I think, as well. But it seems like public safety seems to be a big priority. Planning seems a big priority for for both of y'all.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think so. Let's explain. So they both got elected in the runoff
Yes.
election. So they officially take office July 1st. We're going to have a swearing in June. I think that's Sunday, June 29th or something
June
like that.
29th, I think, is the day.
So that's where we'll do our swearing. And then
It's
we'll
on
be jumping,
Sunday.
Yeah, we'll be jumping right into the budget process. And do y'all have any budget priorities or y'all want to mention? Or maybe you want to talk about maybe a possible tax millage issue?
That's
Oh,
the big thing,
gosh.
is that has to be adjusted. And I mean, we identified this like a freight train coming, when the whole state is getting assessed at a different rate. But we have to adjust it down. And Hernando already has one of the lowest millage rates in DeSoto County. But I mean, I wouldn't say that that's quote unquote lowering taxes, but adjusting that rate gets it where effectively you're paying the same amount of taxes with it.
Ben, do you want to explain
Right.
what's happening?
And a
what's gonna
mill
happen?
is super confusing. For those of y'all that don't know what a mill is, take it away, Ben. Please.
It is. I'm not going to do a great job.
You
with
know what it is?
I do.
Come on, Sharp.
I know. Chad.
You from
He's,
Georgia?
he's trying to listen. He's putting me on the spot.
what's a
So a mill for the city of Hernando, for example, currently it's about $190,000 a year. It equates to about $190,000 a year of property tax revenue for the city. The city collects 40.76 mills from every parcel, unless you're exempt for some reason, like you're over 65, you have homestead exemption. If you're a disabled veteran, you have an exemption. There's a few things there. But for myself, just give an example, probably about $2,500 in property taxes total is what I pay for my home, right? Mm-hmm. That's divided in three ways. The school district gets their share, the DeSoto County gets their share, and then Hernando gets its share. Probably about $700. Let's just call it an even $700 just to make it kind of easy math. Maybe $750.
That's kind of the average. What's
Something
the
like that.
assessed value on your house?
The assessed value against the assessed value on your house. Now that $750, would pave 1 foot of street, so it's not super. So that's why
it's also important. It's not just your house; it's your entire property.
Correct.
So
Correct.
the
Your entire
land,
parcel.
too.
Yes,
Yeah.
your entire parcel. The 0.62 acres that encompasses our property or whatever it is, and so what goes from there is that you have. That's why you have seen some focus on commercial property, for example. It's just, has a much higher assessed rate because you're talking about equipment that's on site, the value of the buildings, and some of these other things. So what is happening at the state level is that DeSoto County historically has assessed property at about 50% of what the actual value is, and the state is requiring tax assessors across the state to assess it at an 80% value. Now, that's going to be more of a Jeff Fitch question for like how exactly he plans to do this, and will it happen in 1 year, 4 years? What exactly is going to happen? But it has to be increased to that level. So the city does have an opportunity now to say, okay, well, we can decrease the millage rate so that way a mill is going to increase in value, right? So that 1 mill, instead of it being 190,000, well, now it's going to be, for example, we don't know what the exact number is going to be, so we're just going to be working with a hypothetical. Now it's going to be worth $240,000 or something, right? So the city would have an increase of $50,000 per mills, and at 40 mills, that's $2 million or whatever it is. Yeah. I'm not saying that's the situation. So that's just the hypothetical.
You didn't do a very good job explaining a mill, so I'll follow.
Everyone listening is asleep currently, so we have to where's your siren or something?
So basically, a mill is one. You have your property value, your assessed value. A mill is basically you have 1 mill for every $1,000 of your assessed value that you have, and so you pay $1 for every $1,000 of your assessed value per mill.
There you go.
And so basically, with it going from with our property taxes our assessed values having to go to 80% of market value, that makes it to where essentially our net taxes, the amount that we'd actually pay, would go up 30%. Now, legally, we can't raise taxes, or we want to, 30% in a year. So statutorily, we would have to reduce the millage to the effect to a level that would decrease that to no more than 10%, a 10% tax increase, basically. So basically, right now, the way that they've arranged it is your taxes are naturally going to go up 30%. They can only go up 10%. The Board of Aldermen has to reduce the mills to where it would net out at 10%. Now,
or lower.
Yeah, for me personally, I would like it to be neutral.
Yeah, have it stay the same.
Yeah. So that would be essentially a 30% reduction in the millage, so that it netted out to where, people are basically paying next year what they paid this year.
And that would help with budgeting if we're kind of taking it as it's the same on that piece. And it's not the only source of income for Hernando. You guys could speak more to that. Like
That's
the online
correct.
sales tax is one that I always think is fascinating.
We should get our sales tax numbers, Thursday probably. So.
Yeah, so usually about every 15th of the month.
And that's about $500,000 on average, about $500,000.
That's the sales tax, and then the internet sales tax we get twice a year.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
One in January and one in July, and usually that number is around $700,000 to $800,000, just depending on how much y'all are shopping on Amazon. And I know my wife does her part every day. There's a package sitting there. I don't know what's in it. She doesn't know what's in it. It's like Christmas every day.
Yeah, and also revenue we get building fees, fines assessed by the court. So there's some other revenue we get that goes into that account. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, and so if we only can raise it 10%, that's going to be 4 mills. So we could. Yeah. So that's what we're looking at. And that's going to be about $800,000 or so, give or take. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, budget's always a big thing. That was one thing I wanted to ask y'all. What do you feel like is when you're taking on a new job, right? Everybody that's listening to this has had a new job before. What are you most eager to learn, or where do you feel like is the biggest opportunity to learn from here on out, just starting out new? Either one of y'all. We'll start with Kit. You have 30 seconds, there, Kit.
Well, crap. Biggest thing to learn. I mean, it's hard to know what you don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm sure there are a ton of things that I'm going to learn here, and really just skill sets that I'll develop as we go. And I don't really know what they all are, but I know that I've never been an elected official before, and I've never worked in the government before, and I've handled a lot of budgets, but I've never handled a $50 million budget before. So I'm sure there's a great deal of things that I'll have to that I'll learn over the course of the time. Maybe if not in category, in scale. Yeah. So,
Lauren, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd echo that. I don't even know what I don't know yet. I definitely want to have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Try to soak up as much from not just the sitting board, but also former board members, and then of course constituents. So I got a lot of people to listen to, having the entirety of the city
Yeah, absolutely.
looking at me. So just like Kit was saying, I mean, we're fresh off the campaign trail. We're fresh off of people's living rooms, doorsteps, talking to folks everywhere. So we have a lot of fresh ideas, but at the same time, we got to temper that with what we can actually do. And what I kept having to remind myself and folks as I was campaigning is I can only control how I vote, and I can only vote with the conviction in my heart of how I feel would best represent the city and my constituents. But I'm one of 7, so
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
so I think that is going to be a lesson. Although I've said it out loud now, I'm probably going to continually be relearning that, just the reach that I can and can't have.
Chad and I have both been one person on an island before with a vote, and we definitely have seen that before. And I will tell you too that my favorite part about y'all getting elected is that Chad's now not the youngest person on the board of aldermen.
Oh boy.
So he has rubbed my face in it for years now, because he's 3 months younger than me. But now there's an entire ocean of years.
Yeah, Kit's way younger than me. He's like 24.
Yeah, I'm 32.
32. Wow, 32.
So I will say one thing that I learned quickly when I first took, and I think y'all probably experienced this, is how slow things get done. The red tape of trying to get things done. It shocked me sometimes when you have a good idea and trying to get it done. It may take 6, 7 a year to get it done. Like and I say we, but Ben and I both, when we got elected, I think the parks was one of our issues we want to do, and it took basically 3.5 years, 3 years to get Renaissance Park baseball fields built, and so that's something I learned just my personal experience. So it just takes a long time sometimes for certain issues to get taken care of.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
I would echo that, and I think that. I believe I came into this. So the first time I ran for alderman, I was 32 years old, and I did not win. So, Kit, you're better than me officially as 32-year-old political candidates. But the biggest thing was, I followed city, business and all that sort of thing, and so I think when I got actually in the seat and okay, I'm ready to do work, it was like, man, I still do not know a lot of things. And you kind of, and you have certain ideas of, how the budget performs, and just, there's things related to cash flow, right? Like when does the revenue actually come in, and when are we kind of in our lean time of the year? And you don't really necessarily consider those things. It's just like, oh, it's this number. So like we just get that amount, because you're thinking more of a business approach to it, like coming from the private sector. It's like, okay, well, we have $32 million, so every month we probably get around, $3 to $4 million, and like, so it's always there, and that's not really how things work, right? So, just learning some of those things, the mechanics and the day to day. You don't always necessarily, when you're on the board of aldermen, you don't always necessarily know what the day to day, like what in the world's going on, what's Public Works doing today, or what projects are people working on. That's not really necessarily your role as much. And so that's what I thought was going to be more of like we're going to get like a daily email of like, this is how many arrests we made. Like, no, it's not really like that. And, you just kind of, but again, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's definitely been a fun process to learn more of those things. I know Chad and I are both excited about having y'all, join the board. Congratulations, absolutely, on that. Do we need like some fun questions? Because I feel like it's been very like serious and political heavy so far. It's been very like, what's your favorite place to eat in Hernando? Like, is that a place? Is that a thing we can do?
Lauren, what's your favorite place to eat?
Parish, hands down.
The Parish, of course.
Well, yeah, same.
That's where I'm going tonight. I'm excited.
Well, we're going to Mexican tonight.
Which one?
I'm a Mi Pueblo guy. I'm loyal to Mi Pueblo.
Ooh, okay.
And Gordo, he's my man. He takes care of me there.
Is that like your Tuesday night deal?
Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday with the Wickers at Mi Pueblo.
Gordo's there. He takes care of me. I don't have to order. He just brings it to me. So I go there at least once or twice a week.
You don't have to order.
You go to La Siesta every other day. What are you talking about?
Well, I still have to order, though.
Gordo knows, man.
What do you get?
Mi Pueblo tacos.
Okay. All right.
2 chicken, 2 chorizo.
Okay, so you got it down. He's got it down.
Yeah.
Gordo,
medium
shout
cheese
out.
dip.
There you go.
And a big,
You got it.
large ice water.
What's your favorite at the parish? Do you have a favorite or a go-to?
I always like looking at their specials. When I went there for my birthday, I got the twin lobster tails. I felt like royalty. It was
Oh my gosh,
so much.
that sounds awesome.
See,
That
my
does sound
favorite
awesome.
is the crab. Well, it used to be crab stuffed grouper, but I think it's crab stuffed flounder now.
Yes.
I also like their flounder and grits. I think that's
Okay.
really good. So those are
You can't
my
go wrong.
two main.
We
And
don't-
also
we don't
the,
have,
you know,
like-
of course, the crawfish bread. I mean,
Yeah, that's about so. Lindsay Piper's got the crawfish bread recipe, and she's not scared to
wait,
cook it.
what?
Yeah, she does. She brought some to my house one time.
It was. I don't know that it was the exact
was
same, but
pretty
it was.
good.
It was pretty close.
Does
we did a
Miles
pretty
know
good.
that?
We did a. We don't have. We just
Yeah,
tried
I'm
to
calling
recreate
Barry.
it. We just tried to recreate
Should have
it.
put that
I
out on
think
the
we did.
podcast. Huh? You stole it one day. Didn't you?
We did an okay job of trying to recreate it, and that was it. But we loved it. We loved the parish as well. We don't sell advertising on this podcast. We don't make any money off of it. So that's just free advertising for the parish and for Mi Pueblo and their tacos, I guess, apparently. Let's think. What else we got? What do you think, Chad?
Y'all have any closing thoughts? Anything we didn't ask? That's the old investigator question. You know, when you
Oh
do
my gosh.
interrogate somebody at the end, you're like, is there anything I didn't ask you that you need to tell me? Right. That's how you get them.
That's how you get them. So I guess tread lightly with that question. With that being said, anything
So
else
we
y'all
know-
want to add?
For me, I think I'm just, I guess if anyone has my phone number is 901-277-3058. If any of you have my
That's a brave man right
constituents ever
there.
need me,
That's a brave man right there.
if any of my constituents ever need me, just give me a shout. My phone number is everywhere. I mean, it's on real estate signs all over town, so it's not like I'm. If I wanted to keep it a secret, it wouldn't work out very well. So, but no, it's. I like to. I'm. My commitment, I guess, is to be transparent. I'm going to make sure to, be available, be accessible, and give frequent updates as time goes on. So.
Lauren, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited to get started. Ben and I will be the bookends of the board.
Bookends.
I think it's cool.
Holding it
and
down, holding y'all together.
Having me and Kit join, I mean, that knocks the average age of the board down like a decade, I think. So
Wow.
Well,
that's pretty
so
insane.
Doc, I think Doc is the oldest, or was the oldest. Is
I
the
believe
oldest?
so.
Him and Andrew are very close in
That's
age.
what I
so,
thought, yeah.
they're in their mid 70s, I guess. So.
Yeah.
So that probably replacing that with a 34-year-old, right?
35,
35-year-old. So that's cutting that in half. So for sure.
We do have, I think we still, I think, across this entire board, we have a variety of different people in different, points in their careers and their phases of life, in their experiences. Everybody has different places that they're at, which I think makes it, a really strong board for the next 4 years. I think it's going to be, a lot of fun to work with everybody, get to know everybody a little bit better. I don't think we have any big breaking news this week. From last week's meeting, we did do a special proclamation for Renee Triplett, the principal at Hernando Elementary, for a community service award. We gave some shout outs to the 7A girls basketball player, the Gatorade girls basketball player of the year for 7A, Fran Kelly, and also that entire team for winning the district. And I'm trying to think of anything else that we really had that was super pressing from last week's meeting, Chad.
I didn't bring the agenda, but I think that pretty much covered it. Now, do you want to mention that we?
Well, there's the I guess entering into the agreement for that fifth lane on Mackinville.
Yes,
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you. Yes. So coming off of the Mackinville Holly Springs roundabout, there'll be another lane that's constructed there with the help of the county and with Supervisor Robert Foster.
we did MOU with
getting some funding there and MOU to get Mackinville expanded all the way to the roundabout. So definitely good stuff there. I was not in person, but I was there by phone So
Tell the truth.
just in case.
You were in Charleston, South Carolina, with
was
a beer in your hand, just hanging out.
No, I wasn't doing that. I was driving back, and in case you didn't know, Atlanta has traffic. I don't know if that's a well-kept secret or not. I don't know. It's weird. I grew up there and everything, and just forgot the whole time. But yeah, so we hit traffic coming back and weren't able to be there. But yeah, so we had a good meeting last week. We've got a meeting coming up again on May the 20th. A-Fair is right around the corner. I know that's always a big fun event for everybody on the Hernandez Square. When is it?
Saturday morning.
I will be out of town. I'm sorry.
You're not going to be at the A-Fair?
I will virtually run the 5K. I will. If I need to send someone a check, just tell me where to send it. No, the check is in the mail.
All right.
So I'll virtually run the 5K this year. But yeah, so we'll have a meeting on May 20th, and we'll have a recap of that next week. But for now, I'm Ward 6 Alderman Ben Piper.
I'm Ward 4 Alderman Chad Wicker.
For Alderman-elect Lauren McLendon and Alderman-elect Kit Kitchens, thanks for listening to the Boardroom Podcast.